Hey everyone, welcome back. Tonight, we're heading back to Hong Kong, and this time, we're diving into one of the city's most notorious roads, one of the major highways in Tuen Mun. Now, if you've lived in Hong Kong or spent some time there, chances are you've at least heard of it. It's not officially the deadliest road in the city, but it's definitely earned a reputation. Over the years, there's been a string of major accidents. Not just little fender benders, but serious, often fatal crashes. And along with that, a whole bunch of creepy stories and strange sightings have been reported over the years related to this major highway. So here's the thing about the Tuen Mun Highway, it's not just the number of accidents that freak people out, it's the stories that come with them. Over the years, a lot of taxi drivers have reported something seriously unsettling. They'll be cruising down the road late at night, and suddenly, they swear they've hit someone. They slam the brakes, jump out of the car, heart pounding, but there's no one there. Nothing, not a scratch, not even a sign of anyone on the road. Then, there are the sightings people say they've seen someone hanging on the overpass as they're driving beneath it, just dangling there. But by the time they pass and do a double take, it's gone. Nothing's there. Creepy, right? So these are just a few examples of the stories from this highway. There are so many like it, but of course, we won't have time to cover all of them in one episode. So tonight, I'm just going to share one story with you from this highway. So turn on the lights, get comfy, and let's dive into one of the area's local legends tied to this particular highway. Now, I first heard of this story from a caller who phoned into a paranormal radio show back when I was there. Every country seems to have one of these. Late night radio stations with eerie music in the background, and just people calling in to share their supernatural experiences. I always love tuning into these and just hearing the local legends and experiences. But this particular story, this one really stuck with me. It really gave me goosebumps, so I hope you guys will like it too. This particular incident happened years ago, early 2000s. There was a man, let's call him Kwan. He was getting off work late one night. It was around 11 p.m. He was tired, just looking to get home, and he was going to take the bus that eventually goes onto this highway in Tuen Mun. Now, just to give some quick context for those of you who aren't familiar with the public transport in Hong Kong, there are two types of buses. There's the minibus and then there's the full-size bus, which are double-deckers. When I say bus in this story, I'm talking about those big double-decker ones. And one more quick thing, unlike the double-deckers that you see here in the States or in the UK, both levels of the ones in Hong Kong, they're fully enclosed. So the upper deck, it's not open air or anything like that. It's just like the lower deck, sealed up, with rows of seats and big windows and lighting and air conditioning. Alright, so with that in mind, let's get back into what happened to Kwan that night. He waited at the bus stop like usual, and when the bus finally rolled up, he hopped on and headed straight upstairs like he always did. Kwan preferred sitting on the top level. The views were better, it was quieter, and he had one favorite seat, right behind the staircase. It's pretty much this little corner where you don't have to look at anyone's head in front of you, and there's just a nice bit of privacy. It's the perfect spot if you want to just zone out after a long day. Now let me paint a picture for those of you who've never been on one of these buses back in the early 2000s. The lighting was always pretty bad. It had this cold, flickery fluorescent glow that made everything look a little off. People's skin would take on this yellowish green tint almost. It was almost sickly. It wasn't flattering at all, and late at night, it made the whole upper deck just feel very unsettling. Like you're sitting in a ghost story waiting to happen. And honestly, even now in 2025, some of these Hong Kong buses still have the same lighting. I don't know if they just haven't upgraded the bulbs, or maybe it's an older model of bus that I got on. But if you've ridden one late at night, you know what I'm talking about. It just sets this weird, eerie mood, especially when the rest of the city outside is pitch black. But of course, for Kwan, this was just a normal night, a normal ride home. At least, that's what he thought. Now, on this particular night, even though it was already late, maybe around 11 or 12 at night, there were still a ton of people catching the bus. Kwan had gotten on at an earlier stop, so he managed to snag his usual seat at the upper deck, but every other stop after that, packed. Every single stop. More people were waiting, and the bus just kept filling up. By the time they hit the last stop, before heading onto the highway, the bus was already completely full. Every single seat was taken, and the lower level was packed with standing passengers, shoulder to shoulder. As the bus left the last stop and started heading toward the highway, Kwan noticed something. The bus was moving unusually slow. Not just like a casual cruise kind of speed, more like it was struggling. The engine started making this deep, heavy noise, like it was pushing way too hard just to climb a small hill. And then the whole bus started vibrating. Not the usual bumpy road kind of shake. It felt like the engine wanted to give out. The floor felt like it was pulsating. Kwan looked around, and a few people seemed to notice this too. Some glanced at each other, confused, but no one said anything. Then, the engine just died. The whole bus went quiet. The driver put it in park and stepped off the bus to check things out. Everyone sat there, waiting, wondering what was going on. A few minutes later, he came back inside and tried to start it up again. Turned the key, nothing. Tried again, still dead. Finally, he stood up and shouted, "Everyone, off the bus. The bus is broken. You'll have to wait outside for the next one." So now, it's nearly midnight. You've got a packed double-decker bus, stranded. People are tired and irritated, asking themselves how they got so unlucky tonight. Now, since there's only one staircase to get downstairs from the upper deck, and with the bus being totally packed, it was going to take a while for everyone to file out. Kwan wasn't in any hurry, so he figured, what's the point of rushing just to stand outside? So he stayed seated for a bit, waiting for the crowd to thin out. Made sense, right? May as well enjoy the seat while he still had it. He turned around to glance at the rest of the upper deck, and noticed that about 10 other passengers were doing the same thing, just sitting there, like him, calm, unbothered, just quietly waiting. Kwan thought, alright, smart crew. No need to push and shove, we're just all gonna end up in the same spot anyway. Some of them were gazing out the window, others just sitting back like they had all the time in the world. Eventually, once the aisle cleared up a bit, Kwan stood up and started making his way downstairs. As he looked back one more time while descending the stairs, those 10 passengers were still there, still sitting, still motionless, not even reaching for their bags, not even looking toward the exit. They looked totally calm, like they weren't in a rush to go anywhere. Most of them were just staring out the window. Kwan figured maybe they're just going to wait until the next bus comes before they bother getting up. So Kwan's standing outside now, just like everyone else, waiting for the next bus to show up. It's late and he's kind of regretting his decision to get up so soon. He thinks to himself, man, I should have just stayed upstairs like those smart passengers who stayed behind. Would have been more comfortable sitting down, at least. And as he was thinking that, he glances up, just casually looks toward the upper deck of the bus. That's when something strange happens. His eyes locked onto one of the passengers still seated upstairs. A man, sitting perfectly still near the back. And the moment their eyes met, the man started to smile. But not like a friendly smile. This was something else. It was slow, unsettling. Just this eerie, deliberate grin stretching across his face as he kept his gaze locked onto Kwan. Kwan, caught off guard, gives a polite little nod, the kind of automatic reaction you get when someone makes eye contact with you, and he quickly looks away. Then he looks back up again. The man is still staring at him, and now his smile is even wider. The kind of smile that looks very forced and awkward. Combined with that sickly yellow-green light from the bus's fluorescent bulbs, it made this man's expression look wrong, almost distorted. Kwan felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Something about that smile just didn't feel human. And then, something even stranger happens. As Kwan kept watching, he noticed the other passengers, the ones who stayed on the bus, all slowly turning their heads toward him, one by one, all of them, staring at him with no expressions, except that man, still smiling. Eventually, after what felt like forever, the next bus finally showed up. Everyone started climbing aboard, including Kwan. He found a seat near the back, still feeling a little shaken, but trying to brush it all off. Probably just some weird guy trying to mess with me, he thought. But as the new bus pulled away, Kwan couldn't help but glance back at the broken down bus still sitting on the side of the road. By now, the lights had been turned off. The inside was completely dark. But as his bus passed by, he saw them. Those same passengers were still all sitting exactly where they were before. They were all staring at him still. Every single one of them just sitting there in the dark. Eyes all locked on Kwan as he rolled past. So what do you guys think really happened that night? Were those just regular passengers who, for whatever reason, didn't feel like getting off that broken down bus? I mean, maybe they were just tired and planned to take the next bus instead. But if that's the case, Why did the driver shut off the lights on them? Or could they have been something else? Spirits maybe? Lingering on the road already known for its dark history and tragic accidents? Let me know what you think. Was Kwan just imagining things? Maybe the creepy lighting and the cold AC played tricks on his mind. Or did he come face to face with something not entirely human? Alright, I know I said I would only share one story tonight, but I don't think that single story was enough, right? Okay, let me share one more with you then. This story also takes place in the same area as the previous one. This story happened to a minibus driver in Hong Kong. Let's call him Mr. Lau. He used to run the late night routes, driving from Seung Sui through the quieter districts, long after most of the city had gone to sleep. He's been retired for a while now, but there's one ride he'll never forget, one shift that changed how he saw the job and the world around him. Most of his years behind the wheel were uneventful, just long nights, the occasional drunk passenger, maybe a stray dog crossing the road. But this night, this was different. It happened about 15 years ago. Mr. Lau was doing his usual late night run from Tuen Mun up to Seung Sui. That stretch, especially after 9 PM, is usually dead. No traffic, no noise, just the low rumble of the engine and the dashboard lights glowing in the dark. He rarely picked up more than a passenger or two that late. Some nights, no one at all. But this night, something felt off. It started like any other shift. A little after 10 PM, he was cruising through Seung Sui. Streets were quiet. The radio was crackling faintly with the static. Nothing unusual. Then he saw them. Up ahead, at a stop that was usually deserted. It was a large group of people, just standing there, under a flickering street lamp by the bus stop. He slowed down, puzzled. By this hour, most people were home already. There's nothing much in this area to begin with. But the group didn't move, didn't talk. They just stood there perfectly still, faces shadowed in the orange glow. Already something felt wrong. But what could he do? Maybe they missed the last bus. Maybe they were coming home late from work or dinner. So, he pulled over and opened the door. The passengers got on one by one. They dropped the coins into the fare box without saying a word. No eye contact, no smiles, just blank stares and quiet footsteps as they headed toward the back of the bus. It was odd, but not alarming. Not yet. The rest of the drive was pretty uneventful. No more passengers, no strange detours. When they reached the end of the line, the passengers all just got off in silence. No goodbyes, no thank yous. Just another quiet night. Or so he thought. Back at the depot, Mr. Lau turned in his fare box like usual, dropped it off, and then he went home. But the next evening, the moment he walked into the depot, his boss was waiting. Didn't say a word, just shoved a handful of crumpled paper into Mr. Lau's hands. At first glance, it looked like cash, but it didn't feel right. The paper was too thin, too dry, and the designs, they were all wrong. They weren't real bills. They were hell notes, joss paper, the kind that you burn for the dead, offerings for the afterlife. These were in your box you turned in. His boss snapped. What kind of joke is this? But Mr. Lau wasn't joking. He remembered those passengers paying with real money. He heard the coins drop, saw the bills go in. He swore it. But of course his boss didn't believe him. He thought he was pulling some kind of scam, swapping out the money and pocketing the real bills. Mr. Lau was furious. He'd driven for years, never had anyone question his honesty. So the boss said, fine. He'd take the route himself that night. Same route, same time. And sure enough, the same group of passengers was waiting at the same stop again. They boarded, paid in real Hong Kong dollars, and sat down quietly. The boss watched every step. But when he returned and opened the box again, hell notes again. He didn't say anything at first, just stared at the notes in his hands. The next morning, he went straight to Wang Dai Sin Temple, came back with the talisman, bright yellow, covered in red ink symbols. Mr. Lau didn't question it. He just hung it on the rearview mirror that day, just in case. He didn't care how it looked. After what happened, he wasn't taking a chance. That night, Mr. Lau took the wheel again, talisman swinging gently from the mirror. As he neared that same stop, he braced himself, but this time, it wasn't a crowd, just a young couple. Nothing strange about them. The man wore a black leather jacket. The woman had a handbag slung over her shoulder. They looked like a normal couple, heading home. They stepped on, paid in cash, and sat down right behind Mr. Lau. At first, nothing felt off, But soon, the air inside the bus started to change. He couldn't explain it, just heavier somehow, like something unseen had joined them. Mr. Lau glanced in the mirror, and that's when his blood ran cold. The woman's face? Half of it was gone, torn away, exposing bone and the hollow socket where her eye should have been. And the man? His body was mangled. Chest caved in, arm was twisted in an unnatural angle. But when Mr. Lau turned to look at them directly, they were fine, perfectly normal. The woman was adjusting her bag, and the man was looking out the window. But in the mirror, they were monsters. Mr. Lau's hands trembled on the wheel, sweat pooled under his shirt. He tried to keep his cool, tried not to scream, not to break, not to show anything. He just kept driving, pretending like everything was fine. But inside, he was falling apart. Then, he wet himself out of fear. Yep, he wet himself, but that's how real the fear was at the time. Even if he wanted to, Mr. Lau couldn't stop the minibus. There was nowhere to pull over, just a long stretch of highway. Eventually, they reached the Tuen Mun area. The couple finally spoke. "Next stop, please." He raised his left hand in silent acknowledgement and pulled over to let them off. The couple hopped off the bus and walked away like nothing happened. But Mr. Lau knew what he saw. Back at the depot, Mr. Lau told his coworkers everything he saw. Then, he collapsed and woke up in the hospital. Doctors said it was due to stress. That was the last night shift he ever did. He went back to day shifts after that, and now, whenever he sees a minibus with a yellow talisman hanging from the mirror, he just wonders, did that driver experience the same thing as him?